The views and content expressed on the following program are provided solely for informational and entertainment purposes. They do not constitute legal advice. A podcast is not a substitute for retaining a competent, licensed attorney to advise you on your specific legal situation.
Break the business, play is work and work is play. Power into creators, have fun along the way. Break the business, doing what it takes. Celebrate success and learn from the mistakes.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is time for Break the Business, where we empower indie creators and have some fun along the way. I'm Ryan Kairalla, and it is a pleasure to have you here this week. We got ourselves a cool program this week. I'm excited for this one. Excited to be sharing this adventure with all of you. We're going to have ourselves a blast. Let's go ahead and just bring the co-host right in here. Producer Lauren is hanging out with us this week. Producer Lauren, how are you? Are we okay? I'm a little concerned. You appear to be
alive.
Horizontal right now.
Yes, I have been advised not to be vertical. That's a fun advisory, right? Don't stand up.
Are you dying, sis? What's happening?
I hope not, though. Our niece Abby made me promise her that I wouldn't die today, which is an interesting promise to have to give someone. But she has replied to me multiple times today, blink twice if you're still alive. Because she was with me today when we went to pick up some stuff and activities for her upcoming pep rally at school. We needed to collect a bunch of neon fluorescent stuff. And I've been dealing with dizziness and nausea. We went over to the warehouse, and within a couple of hours of hanging out with her, like when I stood up and moved around, I was literally throwing up on the floor and leaning to lay down. And so she left me in a state very well taken care of, having called the doctor, checked in, and they are following up with me tomorrow. But at present, we are definitely streaming this show from a horizontal position so that we do not have projectiles onto the computer.
Look, Lauren, don't get me wrong, okay? I can't tell you how grateful I am that you are willing to play hurt for this program. And I know you might be thinking, hey, I got to give it my best. I have to go even though I'm sick because this is a Sirius XM show. But like, this isn't Howard Stern's Sirius XM, all right? We are not high up on the Sirius XM totem pole. If you have to skip a week because you can't even like get your head above your heels because you're so sick, we can go without you. I feel very concerned right now.
Okay, no. Okay, spoiler alert, but if our wonderfully adored guest has anything to say about it, like he gets injured and worries about how the show is going to turn out for the audience before taking care of oneself. So I understand said sentiment, and you will hear stories as we get to chat with our guest later. But I believe in that wholeheartedly, and it's not a conscious choice. If you're going to suffer one way or the other, having an awareness of like when that's, usable and you're capable of still giving something to your audience, like do it. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. Our guest this week has a pretty great story about taking an injury and making the best of it for the sake
Amen.
of art. Let me let the viewers and listeners know what's up here with respect to our guest. So last week we dedicated an inordinate amount of time
You introduced me last
on the
week.
show.
I had no idea.
Yeah. But like, I mean, I like to think I introduced like all of the, podcast world here at Break the Business to an artist that I have just fallen in love with.
We're all
named
better
Victor
for it.
Jones.
Yeah.
I proclaimed my obsession with Victor Jones. He is a Brooklyn-based recording artist, writer, a multi-hyphenate, a comedian, every kind of art this person does it.
Visual art, yes.
And his music, I don't know how you would describe it. It's just like really passionate screaming, but it resonates with me, and it is resonating with a very growing audience on TikTok and Instagram. And I said last week on the show, I made it my mission. I marked my words. I marked them that we were going to get him as a guest on Break the Business this week. And your boy delivered. He is our guest this week on the program. We pre-recorded the interview, so we're going to play it a little bit later in the show. And
because he's so popular, let's just discuss that, when gigs come flying in for creators, we say we're going to make it work because we want you working. So,
absolutely.
Yay. I'm going to say the only reason that he's not here live, because he would totally be here live if he could, is because he's out there being a creator making money.
Yeah, he's playing a gig as we speak. He's getting lots of gigs lately. But because the video has been pre-recorded, we know what's going to happen. And there's a couple things I want to kind of tease about this interview that I think will get you excited. One, this might be one of the longest Break the Business interviews we've ever done. I think it clocks in at about 45 minutes because I could not stop talking to him. I was so obsessed with hearing about his story. He was super engaging. And so that is something you all can be excited about. And I think the two things about the interview that I'm most interested in sharing, and I think that you're going to get the most out of as viewers and listeners, is one, I think more than any other interview that we've done, we have caught an artist that is on the rise. This is an artist that I think we have caught him in a point in his career right before a whole bunch of things are about to explode. I don't use this word lightly. Victor Jones is a genius. And I think within a few months, maybe a year or two, he's going to reach a place where he won't be taking our call anymore. And I could not be happier for him for that. Like he's about to take off because I don't think this kind of brilliance gets to stay secret forever. Second thing I think that's interesting about this interview is how unusually forthcoming he was about who he is, his mental illnesses, what he goes through, his demons. Super open book about that, super comfortable talking about it. And I think a lot of our viewers and listeners, Lauren, are going to see a lot of themselves in him and are going to benefit a lot from hearing his really powerful story.
And his honest music, like his entertainment quality is that honest because he is that open. I think that, most people are hiding something, right? And the people who are willing to just let it out really can create some magnificent art,
And he really does let it out. And I think we're all going to enjoy benefiting from that. So that's going to come up in just a few minutes. I think people are really going to dig this interview. And if I can play even a small part in more people finding out about this guy and getting into his music, he's not doing anything like anything else anyone else is doing. He is very much carving his own path as an artist. It's a really unique sound, and I think it taps into a certain segment of young people who are angry and disaffected, and it speaks to them. And I think it could speak to you too. So I encourage you to check out his music at Victor Jones on TikTok. Victor Jones is a construct.com. Check him out. Before we bring him in, though, just a quick piece of entertainment news that I thought was interesting, Lauren. They came out in the Wall
You have
Street
to break
Journal.
it up so that it's not an entirely Victor Jones episode.
Yeah,
I respect that. I respect that.
Well, we already spent all of last week glazing Victor Jones. I need to throw at least one non-Victor Jones in here story.
You needed a session. You were getting over the Tay-Tay thing for a while. We have to.
Oh, he's absolutely become my new Taylor Swift in my eyes. Sorry, Taylor.
I'm saying like everything was about her, and now everything's Victor Jones. I'm loving it.
Absolutely. Well, because I think they're both going to become billionaires someday. I have no doubt.
I'm in.
I want Victor Jones to have everything he wants from this world. He's a genius, and I really love his stuff. But a story in the Wall Street Journal that I thought was interesting, Lauren. Let me run this hypothetical by you.
Okay.
What if I told you that I am going to come and steal your car from you? And the only way that I will not steal your car is if you tell me first that you don't want me to steal your car. But otherwise, I will think that I have the right to steal your car. Or I have the right to rob your house unless you specifically tell me you can't rob my house, Ryan. Or I have the right to punch you in the nose unless you specifically tell me you don't have the right to punch me in the nose. Do you think that's a good legal system and a good way to do things?
No, I can release the song you wrote before you as long as, I decide to put it out there. It doesn't matter that you wrote it, right?
Yes, or in the copyright space, right?
Put it out there, right?
I can infringe your copyright unless you specifically tell me not to. If all of that sounds absurd to you as a legal concept, that we have to give somebody a prohibition to not infringe our rights to keep them from doing it, then you will find what OpenAI has just announced lately to be equally absurd. So according to the Wall Street Journal, the AI platform OpenAI is about to release a new version of its Sora video generator, and it is going to generate videos using people's copyrighted material, using people's copyrighted fictional characters, unless the owners of those materials specifically go to OpenAI and opt out of having their work appear in the platform. OpenAI began alerting talent agencies and studios about this product and this opt-out plan over the past week and plans to release its new version in the coming days. And I saw, I think it was in The Verge or some publication, some article, I think Business Insider, actually just put up like a bunch of these Sora videos where they had like King of the Hill characters and Simpsons characters and Family Guy characters doing stuff. Like they made videos with these characters, no copyright permission, and and Sora lets you do it. And apparently Sora seems to think that the way copyright law works is we're allowed to steal your stuff unless you specifically tell us we're not allowed to steal your stuff. I can break into your house unless you tell me don't break into my house.
Now, that's a universal everything, or like when the thespian organization, the International Thespian Organization, realized that copyright law affects students as well.
So there's like the theater competitions that were like students perform theater pieces, and
they realized that they should get permission from the playwrights to let people do their work. And people are like, well, they're not getting charged for it. It's like, yeah, but should the person who wrote it have any say in who's allowed to perform it? Any at all? And what they did was they contacted the publishing houses, and the publishing houses contacted the writers and gave an opt-out option. So is that different if like I own it as a company? Like, did OpenAI say, hey, Paramount, anybody, you're agreeing to let us use everything from Paramount unless your people opt out? Or they're literally saying like universally, we didn't make a deal with your rights owner. We're just saying we own everything in the world unless you say no.
That seems to be their position, is they are going out to all of the rights holders, like the movie studios, the talent agencies, and saying, we are going to assume that we can use your stuff unless you tell us not to. And the only thing I can think of from a legal standpoint is like, how could they possibly think that's the way the law works? Is OpenAI is betting that they would be protected by fair use for doing this. I think it is a horse bleep fair use argument. You cannot, like, fair use does not allow you to just have blanket permission to steal everybody's copyrighted works for your video generator platform. But that seems to be the position they're taking. And so they're saying, we assume that we're allowed to use your work. And if you want to stop us, tell us that you want to stop us. But I think that's absurd. And I wouldn't want to live in a copyright world where that's the way things are done.
Well, and in some ways, aren't they kind of admitting to what they're doing by giving that opt out? Like, in
It
general,
seems kind of silly, right? Yeah.
in the first round, we're going like, oh, well, we just kind of input all the information out there and it wasn't intentional. We were stealing your material.
We were just
But
throwing
now they're
everything
like-
into the soup. Yeah.
Right. It was just in there. But now they're like, hey, by the way, we're aware we're about to take copywritten work. You want out of it? And it's like, hold on, you just admitted to what you were doing.
That is an excellent point, Lauren. It does seem like OpenAI is basically admitting to willful infringement. So under copyright law, like, we have different degrees of copyright infringement. There's like innocent infringement, which is, yeah, I infringed your copyright. I didn't mean to do it. It was an accident. And that's still copyright infringement, but the damages are much lower. When it's willful infringement, when you said, I stole your stuff and I totally meant to do it, those are much higher liabilities. And yeah, it does seem like by saying no first. Yeah, by sending something that says, hey, we're about to steal your stuff unless you tell us no, that seems like they're admitting that what they're doing is infringement.
Right. Wouldn't that like help the cause of the other people? Or I guess they're
Sure
hoping
seems
that
like it.
nobody's going to want to go up against them financially. But like, if they're fighting with the Simpsons, like, I'm pretty sure those people have a fight.
Yeah, the Simpsons pretty litigious about their IP. All those cartoons, absolutely. Okay, so we're about to face a big reckoning when it comes to copyright and AI. There are lawsuits that are pending against AI music generation platforms like Suno, and now there's going to be lawsuits against Sora. ChatGPT is facing some pretty significant lawsuits from like the New York Times and things like that.
And that's
There's going to be
OpenAI
a
as
reckoning,
well, right?
Yeah, just
So-
different sides of OpenAI.
Well, there's a question for you then. Do you think they're just going, look, there's so many lawsuits out there. We're probably going down with this ship anyway. And by that point, it'll be free to the world. So you know what? If we're going in, let's just go all in. Like, you think they're just throwing caution to the wind at this point?
I think the strategy is similar to the strategy that like TikTok uses and a lot of platforms use, where people are basically stealing copyrighted content to put on these platforms. Is they're hoping that the platform gets big enough and entrenched enough by stealing a bunch of people's IP that they become too big to get rid of and the rights holders have to make a deal. Or Congress goes, well, too many people are using this platform now, we can't make it shut down, so we're going to draft some legislation that allows them to use this platform. And so I think that's the strategy, is they're going to try to entrench themselves enough that they're too big to get rid of with either a court ruling or some other aspect of copyright law. And it might work.
That's what they're trying to do here. Like, it's like, look, we're going all in and we're going to go, hey, look, if you don't want to be part of all in, say no. But right now we're using you like it or not. And
And we're a $500 billion company right now, according to some valuation. So yeah, we can afford a few lawyers to fight you on this.
And look, by the time it goes to court, we're going to be so big, they're not going to be able to compete with us and shut us down. So this is your only chance. If you don't want to be a part, say it now. Because when the courts favor in our favor, you won't have a say. So have a say now. So I guess the moral of that story is, if you have any content you want to protect, why don't you go on OpenAI's site right now and protect it?
Keep an eye on all these stories. I think they're going to have huge implications for creators. So keep an eye on it. All right, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to be joined by our guest, Victor Jones. It's a great interview. I encourage you all to check it out. Keep listening to Break the Business. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Break the Business is presented in cooperation with Ryan A. Kairalla, PA. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA is a law firm providing transactional entertainment legal services, including contracts, business formation, commercial law, copyright, trademark, and more. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA, Miami, Florida. rkpalaw.com.
Streaming services for Break the Business provided by LEK Entertainment. LEK Entertainment is a full-service entertainment company offering everything from consultations to full-scale events and productions, including audio and video productions, voiceovers, staged theatrical productions, script and music development, and streaming services. For more information, visit lekentertainment.com. LEK Entertainment wants to help you bring your story to life.
Thanks for supporting Break the Business. If you have a question or topic that you want us to discuss, email us at breakthebusiness@gmail.com. You can follow the host, that's me, on Twitter at Ryan Kair, and you can follow the show at the BTB Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, and on all major podcast platforms. And now, let's get back to the show. Our guest this week is a Brooklyn-based musician, recording artist, and writer who has been described lovingly by TikTok commenters as, quote, alluring inebriated grandpa groove, quote, an absolute hoss poppy, and, quote, the male equivalent of serving, followed by a C word that I cannot say, even on satellite radio. You can find out more about our guest's work by visiting www.victorjonesisaconstruct.com and at Victor Jones Music on Instagram. We are happy to welcome Victor Jones on to Break the Business. Hello, Victor.
Hi, Ryan. I'm really stoked to be here. I think given that it's a food, you can say clam, maybe.
That's, I mean, it was clam, right?
It was clam. That's what it said. Yeah, serving clam.
You're
of course. Yeah.
serving so much clam.
Yeah,
I assure
word,
you.
in fairness, yeah.
I assure you, Victor, the stoking is something that is shared between the both of us, because I have annoyed the producers on this show and all of my loved ones around me over the past couple weeks with just my affinity for all things Victor Jones. I discovered you quite delightfully on my For You page a few weeks ago, and since then I have just made your music my personality, much to the detriment of those around me. And ever since I've experienced your content, I've had to interview you. As far as I'm concerned, this is the most important interview I've ever done, and I've interviewed literal members of Congress on this show.
You've interviewed Chris Gethard, who is like, I used to go see his shows with like little indie like theaters, not indie theaters, but like little black boxes. He would do stand-up. It's solo shows, like story shows.
Yeah. And
it meant so much to me. It's very cool that you got to interview, because that's the big one for me. I don't know if you interviewed some senator that's, passing legislature and changing the world. Chris Gethard changed my world. So that's shout out Chris Gethard. DM me. Let's find out a collab.
I could see you and his comedy blending well together, and I could definitely see him as being an influence for you.
Oh, sure.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm getting tangled in my cable here. Forgive me. So, I mean, why do you think your music and most of our people on the show who watch the show are familiar with your music at this point, because I've played you throughout the program. Like, they know about I Get Hurt and Shoulder Song. They know sort of your whole vibe, right? Like this really cool, musically engaging yelling, with some like insanely addictive beats behind it, and just really emotionally vulnerable, putting everything out there kind of music. Why do you think this music is resonating with people? Because it is. I see the comments. Like, people like what you're putting out.
Yeah, I think the question I've been asking myself is why. So I released my first record 5 years ago. Why wasn't it resonating? And now why did it take to this moment? And obviously there's a lot of chaos factors, like right place, right time, like the fact that I work until I fall asleep, like, whatever, right? There's a lot of privilege, luck, everything, right? But I do think there is an element of my work that may be the most predominant element, that a lot of it doesn't make sense. And so a lot of people, like, it doesn't make sense on surface level, or sometimes even on any level, it doesn't make logical sense often. But there is something you feel from it, the way that you look at a Rothko and feel something. You look at or listen to anything abstract and you feel something. And I think right now I don't want to get into politics, because but I think the world is at a place where a lot of things are happening that don't make a lot of sense on a humanistic logical level, but make us feel things, in my place, very negative things. But it's like, why? What is the? Often you can trace it back to something like money or power, but normally it's like, what, you have to think for a second, like, what? That just seems bad. That just seems like supervillain behavior. And I think that permeating the general ethos of the world, where I don't think I used ethos right there, but let's roll with it. That, in addition to just, you know, my biggest demo is like 25 to 35. So I think there's, I think there's like an element of just lostness that we feel right now, and a loneliness, especially for people. I have big fan bases in like the South, for example, where I think the weirdos and the outcasts have kind of conglomerated and been like, this guy gets something within me. And I think that a lot of my music speaks to how deeply affecting things can be, even when they don't make clear-cut logical sense. I cite the O.J. Simpson trial often as an artistic inspiration.
Don't we all?
Well, don't we all, right? But it's kind of like, that's a real world, very dangerous, pragmatic, anti-pragmatic, non-artistic example of a emotional story resonating. And you do see this in politics all the time, an emotional story resonating in a way that is far more effective than, you know, Marcia Clark coming in with just literal facts. And it's, you know, you hear all these pundits say facts don't care about your feelings. It's like, actually, it's kind of the other way around. Like, feelings for sometimes for better and often for worse, feelings absolutely surpass facts in terms of how potent they can be. There's a reason people think Born in the USA is a happy anthem. It's because it feels happy. And that's part of the point, you know?
Right.
It's like, you hear the text of it, and it's kind of this dissonance, but you feel the thing before you think about the thing and I think that's what I'm doing. I think that's what I'm exploring. And I think that now is a time that is resonating in a strong way.
So you've been coming on a bit in your music lately, it sounds like, and I think I'd agree with this, because your music is sort of meeting a moment right now, and in addition to that, is speaking to a segment of the population that, for a lot of very valid reasons, is feeling quite disaffected right now, and your music channels a lot of that. And I think, I mean, and you can tell me if I'm wrong about this, I'm sort of just observing this from seeing kind of like your TikTok lately, but I feel like the last few months for you have kind of shot you up a bit, right? Like I'm just gathering you're probably getting more followers than you usually do, more engagement on your music than you usually are. Am I correct about that? And
yeah, it's been exponential since about March. I dropped a little short form video for White Fang Safari that did pretty well, and that kind of started this snowball. And then White Fang Safari was one of the singles that led up to my kind of rock opera-y record, Zookeeper. And so Zookeeper now had some hype behind it. And then that dropped, and that did well. And then I took a bit where I was just performing live a lot, and more people knew the lyrics to things. And, you know, people would come to the shows with fan art about the Tigers or whatever.
That must be a wild feeling. What was it like the first time you looked into the crowd and you saw people mouthing your lyrics back to you?
The first time I looked in the crowd and saw people mouthing my lyrics back to me that were not my friends. Not that they were my enemies, but they were not people I personally knew. I almost cried, actually. The first big time where I think I did cry a little bit was the Shoulder song at the end of the Zookeeper debut show. So it was before the Shoulder Song video became my big video. But I still had the whole audience going, I like mean women, I like soft men. And then I had the whole audience singing the chorus at the end where I did this huge sing along of like looping it over and over. And yeah, it was very emotional. I think it was more like when you get your ears cleaned out, you know, like I felt for like years. I mean, I would say since I was like in middle school, because I mean, I go way back with music. I'm in middle school. I literally burned CDs of an EP that I had made and sold them for $1 a piece, and I burned them on the school computer and got in trouble. Right. So like, it's been ages. I was composing when I was 7 and 8. Like I was writing sonatas and stuff. So all that time, and mostly to deaf ears, besides people who knew me personally. So the ear cleaning analogy being, it felt like this immense relief. I just located my knee a few years ago, and when they pop it back in, it hurts really, really bad for like a second, and then it's like, oh, it's like the most relief because it's back in place and it doesn't hurt. Like that it felt kind of like for, you know, a decade I had my knee on the side of my leg. And then really when people started appreciating what I was doing, there was a combination of validation, but also just like relief. Because I also dropped out of college. So it's like you
dropped out of music school, right?
Yeah. I was going to be a barista for the rest of my life, you know what I mean? Or a dog sitter or something. If I didn't, like, I didn't know what else I was going to do. I couldn't teach because I didn't have a degree. I'd have to either go back to school, which sounds like a nightmare. Anyway, huge relief, I would say, more than like excitement or anything. It was just like profound relief, you know?
Well, I'd like to hear more about that musical journey. Like the kind of music you're doing now where it's the yelling, it's like the David Byrne, but like angrier, or as I call it to people, angry cake or immodest mouse.
Angry cake.
I told somebody, it's like,
that sounds like a mobile game where you play like cake.
Angry cake. God, that, like, you and we need to develop Angry Cake. I don't even know what the game's going to be about, but I already know like it's going to make a lot more money than either of us can make in our respective line of works. Angry Cake. Great mobile sensation. It's going to destroy Candy Crush. Now, but like that musical evolution, like were you always making like just that Angry Cake kind of music even when you were younger, or is this kind of a more recent phenomenon?
No, so I started as composing. I didn't even write lyrics until a little later. I wanted to be a film composer because my other big thing is I love writing, like prose, screenplays, plays. I've put on plays. I've written screenplays. That's what I dropped out of music school to do for a while. Was I was trying to take a break from music and be a movie person. So for a long time as a little kid, I wanted to be a composer for movies. I had a parakeet that I named Willie after John Williams. There's actually a lyric about that in one of my songs. Parakeet named after John Williams and a rat named after Miles Davis. And those are true things. And ancestors up in the mountains that thought only Jesus could save us. Also a true fact. but yeah. Fully was like, I'm going to write music for movies. I wrote music for books that weren't movies yet because the movies already had scores and I didn't want to step on, Hans Zimmer's toes or whatever at age 12. So I was
wait. So like you'd read books as a kid and then be like,
for certain scenes. Yeah.
I'm going to preemptively write the score for this movie this book that has not even been adapted to a movie yet.
Well, because if it had been adapted into a movie, in most cases it had been scored, unless it's like No Country for Old Men or something. So
I love this. I love this about you.
Yeah. So we're talking like when I was like, and I can give you this link, but there's this book called The Glass Castle that I read when I was just far too young to read it. And it affected me a lot. And I scored it. I wrote like, I think 11 pieces, classical pieces for it, recorded them on piano. And Jeanette Walls, who wrote The Glass Castle, did a book signing and I gave her the CD and she was very sweet. And then she ended up playing it on NPR. Which was pretty awesome. I was like 12. I got a call. I was at school and my mom said, you've got to go she called me from home because she was listening to NPR and my music came on.
Oh my God.
So this is when I'm 12. That'll f you up. So
Yeah. Nah, don't worry. That's,
Okay.
it's somebody
That'll
else's
mess-
job to do the bleeps. Don't worry.
All right, that'll mess you up. That'll absolutely mess you up. Yeah. So always composing. I started. Sorry, I need some water. I started writing lyrics probably 11 or 12. When I started doing like the Elton John thing on piano, I was trying to play piano and do rock and sing. And I ended up getting more into that, and then kind of the hybrid was like theater composing. I would write musicals that never got put on when I was like in high school. I wrote 2 full, like hundreds of pages of text and score and stuff. They're abysmal. They're really, really bad. But then that came in music school. I started doing more. I got into groove-based stuff at the end of high school, early college, and LCD Sound System, early funk, and like Sly and Parliament and Fela Kuti and Talking Heads. All these people that were kind of like taking 2 chords and running with them for like 12 minutes, and got obsessed with that. Was writing in that way for a while, and then kind of did a couple different things. But yeah, it was the composing never stopped, but the composing, just instrumental film stuff kind of came to a halt, because I found out I really liked performing, and that's when I started doing comedy too, which became a huge part of my life for a long time. I think it still is, but it was like all I did for a while was do stand-up around Los Angeles.
See, that's an interesting part of your background, because I think a lot of people who are just scrolling through TikTok and you happen to come upon into their feeds, they might think, okay, this is just a guy who yells, and there's not a lot of musical bona fides there. But much how like Dolly Parton used to say, it costs a lot of money to look this cheap. It takes a lot of background and technical skill to make something that sounds like, it might not have all of those things. But in reality, as I've heard you say before, you play your own instruments on your records. Like you're working heavily in the production.
With the exception of a couple drum parts, I play pretty much everything. On Zookeeper, I did play everything, that whole record. Marcus Dembinski, have to throw him credit. He's my drummer. He masters my stuff. But I mix and I play pretty much all of it. Yeah, I arrange it. If there's an orchestral instrument here or there, or like a choir that I've recorded, I'll write the score for it. Like I'll stretch those composing muscles. Like the cellos on Shoulder Song, it's just one person, but I had them record. I think it was like 8 or 12 cello parts that I layered on.
And you wrote the arrangements for that?
Yeah, I write all my.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know. I write everything. I've written arrangements and given them to bassists and drummers. It drives people nuts. I'm like, that's what I'm like. Fundamentally, a composer before anything, a writer and a composer. I definitely love performing and I like it better than composing. But I think as far as like my genuine skill sets, like I'll write. You should see the score for. I don't know if you know the song "Home with You." It's the B-side on Shoulder Song, but that has a flugelhorn section, that has a trumpet section, that has a choir, that has a string section. In addition to a myriad of other stuff. I'm playing guitar, bass, and piano. Marcus playing drums. This is a huge song. Like I think it's over 100 tracks, but only a little bit over 100.
I'm glad you're getting to share that, because I feel like most people wouldn't know that about you, because when we see you perform, it's just you into a microphone. And so I think it'd be easy for people to go, oh, there's a band that's doing all the music stuff. He's just up there shouting. But no, there's so much substance behind that. That's so cool. And there's this multi-hyphenate aspect for you. You're a comedian, writer, you do visual art, photography.
I do all my album art, even the hands-on stuff, like the painting and stuff, is me.
So, as you're.
Oh wait. Credit where credit is due. Shoulder Song. My sister did the painting on the Shoulder Song art. I designed it and drew it up, sketched it, and put it in Canva, and said, "Do this red, but make it really thick." But she did all the painting. I don't want to overlook that. All the other album art is me though.
Okay. Credit where credit's due to the sister there. Very cool. So as your stock is going to continue to rise here, are you going to continue to try to explore ways to bring some of those other talents that you have back into the forefront? Like, do you see yourself doing stand-up comedy or doing some writing, screenwriting, film scoring alongside what you're doing as a recording artist now?
Down the line, absolutely. And for now, I think I'm going to let it play into the music. Like the music is the main channel, and these are like tributaries, kind of like. I think the comedy is obviously there, like that. I would be full of crap if I were telling people that I don't think my songs are funny at all. I do take them very seriously, but I took my stand-up very seriously. I think that I would want to get into comedy and filmmaking, especially filmmaking is that's something I want to do when I've got enough music releases that I'm very proud of, that I feel like I can properly take like 5 years away from releasing an album, for example. Like I might release little stuff. And I'll probably do the score for my movie. I think it would be silly not to, and that's a skill set that I definitely have. But I would want to do that maybe down the line, definitely down the line. I've been saying this more recently as I've had a little more confidence, but I do really fundamentally believe that I don't want people to have a favorite Victor Jones album. I want them to have a favorite Victor Jones medium. I want them to be like, I like his comedy better than his music. And like, no, dude, really? No, his comedy sucks. I love his music. That's the dream. That's the egoist dream. There's also the dream of helping a lot of people and stuff, which is far more important.
Well, and to me, I feel like your stock is rising in what I think is the best time ever to be a multi-hyphenate artist, because more and more we don't necessarily need to put people in boxes anymore. We are fine with somebody being a comedian and an actor and an artist, and in theory, like down the road, like you might be in a place where a Victor Jones concert might not just be Victor Jones playing music. You could do half the show playing music, half the show doing stand-up comedy, because people know you as Victor Jones and not musician or comedian. They might like everything about you and want to experience it all in one sitting. And, a generation or two ago, that was unheard of. Nobody would think of an artist that way, but they can do it now.
I've already done that a little. I did a variety show over 6 shows over 6 months that we filmed live and made a documentary short out of like 30 minutes or so. Still in the works. I don't think it's good, but it was really ambitious. And basically it was 6 variety shows where, with a few exceptions, I was the variety. And so I have like a sketch section where me and some friends did sketches I wrote. I'd have like a short play put on that I was the star of. And it was like this examination of like narcissism and like performance and the idea of, are we always performing, that kind of thing. It was super interesting. And also the first show of it is when I dislocated my knee. I dislocated it live on stage dancing.
Oh my gosh.
And Ryan, the first thing I said was, this is going to be great for the movie, but someone needs to call 911. And there is a video on my Instagram where you can see and hear that, if you don't believe me.
Oh my God.
My thought before someone needs to call 911, my thought was, oh, this is perfect. Like I'm in the most pain I've like ever been in. And I'm thinking, this is ideal.
Yeah. Be honest with me. Which thought came first? Ow, that hurts, or this is great for the movie?
Well, I was in a little bit of shock, I think. So definitely this is great for the movie. And also that's the first thing I said. Even if the thought came first, the way it was this is great for, or ow, this hurts. This is great for the movie. I should say that first. This is great for the movie, but someone needs to call out. So even that is still kind of messed up.
Yeah.
But the whole thing was about performing through pain. And literally this physical incident clarified what this movie was. And so we worked on that for a while. That was 6 shows. So that was an example of, I was literally doing stand-up, and then I'd end every show with a set, a music set.
Given what you just said in your earlier answer about how your your variety show was an exploration of narcissism and what you went through when you sprained your knee and, gave some thought to, we got to talk about how this is great for the movie before people actually call an ambulance for me.
Which, to be clear, is not healthy and is not a good way to think about things.
Sure. But you're also somebody
romanticizing that mentality.
But you're also somebody who wears your mental health on your sleeve. And anybody who experiences your art knows that your brain is wired differently than a lot of other people's brains. Can you reflect a bit on just what mental health means to you, like the role it plays in the music that you
Yeah.
create?
Absolutely. So I've struggled with depression, and specifically, well, preemptively for the listeners, I'm probably going to talk about suicide quite a bit in this answer. So if that's something that upsets you, sorry, Ryan. Maybe skip ahead in the podcast or listen to Comedy Bang Bang or whatever. But yeah, I struggled when I was really young. When I was like too young to know what it even totally meant, I told my parents I wanted to die, and it was a big thing. I was in and out of mental hospitals. I had to go to a boarding school at one point because I was a genuine danger to myself, which turns out that is not the solution.
I wasn't going to say anything, but
no, it was a noble attempt. I don't blame my parents. There was not all this literature that there is now about how dangerous those places are. So that's a whole nother can of worms later. But basically, I've been, addressing the fact that I have an atypical way of thinking about life, death, sadness, happiness, etc. Atypical meaning not the average, not the mean, median, and mode of people do not think the way that I and my peers who have suicidal ideation do. And it's been something that I've faced my whole life. I have not made it go away. I will probably never make it go away. I've made it go away for periods, 6 months, 3 weeks, whatever. But it comes back, and it's insidious. But what I do know now is
do you seek therapy for it, a medication?
Oh
yeah,
like no, absolutely. I've been in therapy and psychiatry since I was like 11.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think I would if I didn't have I seek therapy. Yeah. But basically, it's like I've learned how to cope with it. I've learned how to sit with it and recognize that it is, like anything, impermanent. And that it will go away, and I will get stoked about things again. I will get happy about things again. And it doesn't make it feel any better. The analogy I use that I came up with, because I looked it up, I never heard it used, is broken bone, right? You got someone on the basketball court with their femur sticking out of their leg. You're not going to tell them, oh, it'll get better. Even if you do, they're like, yeah, I don't care. It hurts, like amazingly, terribly hurts. But the truth is it will get better. Like they'll walk again, and within reason. Like there are obviously examples where it doesn't get better, but like that specifically, a broken bone is a great analogy, because it's like when you are deeply depressed or having a panic attack or whatever, it doesn't help that it's going to get better. That's not the point. The point is how it feels right now. There's that quote about people jumping out of burning buildings, not because they want to die, but because the alternative is worse. And that's anyway. So that's all to say. I've struggled with this my whole life. It definitely finds its way into my music and my comedy, actually, in a big way. And I try to be very open about it, because I feel like people are so scared, and validly so. There's so much judgment. And I definitely have had people reach out specifically about this with regards to my work, but also with regards to just my talking about it on in public. And I think that it's important if you can. It's not a requirement, but if you can, and if you have a platform and you can talk about this and you do go through it, it's one of those things where, like, if someone has a heart condition, they take heart medicine, you're like, yeah, of course they take heart medicine, they have a heart condition. But if you tell someone you're on lithium or Prozac or whatever, they're going to be like, oh man, you don't need that. Just be your true self. It's like, no, I have a brain condition the way that someone have a heart condition. Not everyone needs meds. I'm just saying, for me personally, they've saved my life. So it's like, there's such a stigma, there's such judgment, that I think the fact that I've made some people feel seen, I've helped some people feel seen by expressing these things is a reason I will continue to express it.
Is making the art therapeutic for you?
Actually, no. It's not bad. There's no negative. I never make a piece and like feel awful that I've made it. What it is it's something It's more complicated. It's not immediately therapeutic. It's something I have to do. I see something, and if I come up with a lyric or a melody about it, I'll write it down. And that's just all it is. It's all it is. Zookeeper, the whole album was written in a deep depression. I don't think I enjoyed writing a word of that. I loved performing it. I loved recording it because I was feeling better by the time I got to record it. I think it's more like, yes, it is a coping mechanism for sure. But no, it does not like, it's not like solve on the wound, you know?
Oh, it's not like, I'm mad and I punch a pillow and I feel better.
Not at all. No, for me, it's like, it's something that if I didn't do, it would be worse.
Huh.
Things would be worse if I just bottled up all the, because I still write when I'm depressed. I get writer's block in the sense that I don't know. I don't really get writer's block. I hate saying that because I know a lot of people do and I feel bad, but I kind of just always am writing, and sometimes it sucks and sometimes it's good and I pick the good stuff. But when I'm really down, I'll write and everything will have this kind of weird melancholic lens. Because that's the thing about depression is it's not just internal, it's the way you see the world, right? So like you can see like a beautiful flower and be like, that was probably grown with pesticides. You know, everything has for me at least, everything it's about the glasses you're wearing. You know what I mean? The shade of the rose colored or black colored, you know?
I mean, I would say, in the artists that I represent in my legal practice, I would not call the vast majority of them by and large neurotypical. I mean, my own, like, and again, this is with my own complete lack of psychological or psychiatric training. My anecdotal evidence and my own experience would suggest that for a lot of folks, your brain needs to be wired differently to have the capability, by and large, of creating excellent art. Like the people who are creating great art, their brains work differently. Often a lot of them suffer from mental illness. Like, do you think that like creating the heights of amazing creativity require that? Or, do you know people in your own experience who just seem like the most happy, well-adjusted people and can make spectacular art too?
I think it's not a requirement. I think it affects the type of art that is created. I think a lot of the art that I enjoy, like I'll listen to it and like, there's no way this person thinks is always hunky-dory and happy, joy. And then there's some art that's like, no, it really just feels like they were having fun and I love it. I don't know. I think there's definitely, I mean, there's so much evidence to suggest a connection between deeply creative people and mental illness, effectively.
How about stand-up comedy specifically? I feel like that population, and it seems counterintuitive, right? Like you think like, oh, happy people can make people laugh, but there's a lot of pain in that sector of the entertainment industry.
I totally get what you're saying, and I think that again, you've got your bajillion cases of depressed comedians. Like there is a trend. The data points are there for sure. I guess what I say is it's like a square and a rectangle, right? Like it does make it easier to view the world in an analytical and cynical way that can be translated into humor if you are if you lean depressive, if you swing depressive, especially if you're someone who swings depressive and manic like Robin Williams, where like you're able to look at the world in this way that's like, oh, this is messed up, and then like be totally hype about it and like your performance. I mean, there's all kinds of ways it can go, but what I will say is I don't think that all great artists are mentally ill. I also think that the sentiment that you have to be troubled in that way to be an artist can lead people to not seek treatment. I think that there's a large problem in art of like, oh, I don't want to, that would, if I got better, what would I write about,
So that's not a fear that you have? Like there's no part of you that's like, oh, if I get this treated and taken care of, I can't make the same cool stuff that I'm making now?
Well, first I'd have to believe that I could make it go away. And I don't think I can, right? I think I have a chronic illness, and that's okay. I think my goal is to handle it and treat it, whether it's with, skills or meds or whatever, right? Or just accepting certain elements of my life in a way that is very zen, and like I'm gonna get depressed sometimes. Like I literally, it's like I think, yeah, any illness that you have that is like there are some psychiatric illnesses that go away. I know there are personality disorders that you can work really hard on and make them go away. BPD, stuff like that. You can genuinely cease to meet the criteria for it. My disorders, again, based on the scientific evidence we have, which are openly bipolar and OCD, are not disorders that you cure. They don't have a cure. You can't take a pill and make them go away. So for me to be concerned that I would lose my creativity or my spark as an artist if I ever became totally cured of this mood lability, that would require me to believe that there was even a possibility that I could ever be fully cured. And I'm fully at peace with the fact that I am going to get sadder than the average person, and I am probably going to get more high energy at times and talk too fast and do bits at a party that no one thinks are funny and keep doing them because I think they're funny, whatever. Like just really like you've met manic people, even if they don't realize it and you don't realize it. Like they're around. But I have both. Right?
I hang out with a lot of entertainers and lawyers, so yes.
Exactly. You've met them all. But yeah, I don't think of it as something that I would want to cure or be able to cure. That if there ever came a time scientifically where they said you can take this shot once a week, once a month, whatever, and you'll never have a mood swing again, I think I just wouldn't even want that because that sounds boring, And that sounds like it's being on too many meds. When you're on the wrong meds or too many meds and you feel very flat. That does kill my creativity, but that's not like a human state. That's like an altered state, That's different.
I just have to say I really appreciate you being so open about this. I know it can't be easy to discuss this stuff, or maybe it is because you're just so used to it.
I'm so used to it, man. I've discussed this. I'll talk about this stuff on like I don't know. I've brought up some stuff on first dates where I'm so, not on purpose, but I'm just so comfortable with it that it feels like talking about like, oh yeah, my foot is a little atypical, so I walk a little sideways. Like that's what it feels like I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it feels no different to me than a physical hindrance.
Well, let me. There's no way to transition from our
no, and we need to pivot. We've talked about this for so long.
But I'd like to ask you a business type question before we get to our final question.
Why on earth would you want to ask me that?
I know. No, it's in the title of the show. We have no choice.
Oh, right. I forgot.
So you've told me, before we had our conversation here now that, as you've, gotten more into the music side of things, you have taken more of an interest in the business side of things. You are reading the Donald Passman book, All You Need to Know About the Music Business, the holy grail, like the magic tome. We've all had to read it. And so I'm just interested, like, what is like the most fascinating part of the music or the entertainment business that you've learned in your recent study of business that you might want to share with us?
I think people... Well, I guess the part of it that most excites my brain, I'm still very right-brained. I'm still very inherently averse to organizing spreadsheets and being very, type A in that way. So I do love the elements of it that are kind of creative. I think I've only done this minimally, and I will do this more in the coming weeks, it seems like. But cutting deals. It's a conversation. It's improv. It's yes and, right? It's there's something very creative about there's this story, I don't know if it's right, but someone told me it once, a music business professor, about Arcade Fire realizing that Merge didn't have faith in their international success. So they very much did have faith in it. And they cut a deal where I think it was like, they sacrificed a little domestically to get like something crazy, like a 50% of everything 360 internationally, or like 70% or something, or 100. I don't even remember. They got like $9 to a CD or something, and basically they were sneaky but not like deceitful. They just like capitalized on this situation. They took, and like I did improv for years. I actually still accompany sometimes musical and non-musical improv on piano because it's a skill I have, and I find negotiations creative and fascinating. But I guess the marketing is probably the one spot where I'm like, I could see myself having my fingers in this pie for the rest of my career. I obviously would like someone else to be mostly in charge, but yeah, I'm when I see marketing campaigns, I'm like, here's how I would have done it. Like, I'm super interested in marketing. And now I'm like, I don't like capitalism. I don't like any of that stuff. But there's a little part of me that's like, yeah, but marketing's cool. Ads are interesting. You watch people make ads and like Mad Men, and you're like, oh, of course that works. Of course that's it's like.
And in my experience, I've come to find that the artists who are more involved with the business side of things, even if it's just the business side of things that play most of their strengths, like just being involved, making sure that you're always in the room, makes such a big difference for your creative endeavors taking off. Like, you never want to just completely delegate everything to boring folks like us. Be involved because you have the most creative mind in any business transaction that you're going to be involved with. All right. I encourage our viewers and listeners, check out more about Victor Jones. I know you're going to love him as much as I do. Victor Jones is a construct.com, at Victor Jones Music on Instagram. Victor, this has been a treat. I've really enjoyed this, and I appreciate you sharing all this with us and bearing your soul. We got one last question for you. Do you have any last tips for the indie creators out there to help them move their careers forward?
Yeah. So actually it goes hand in hand with the things, if you've been listening, about how one deals with a broken bone or a depressive episode. Everything is impermanent, and that is a good thing. Wishing something away or wishing something in that has to happen organically will never yield positive results. And how that translates to the music business is like, yeah, you just got to, for me, I've been releasing music for 5 years. I've been making music for way longer than that. One of the albums that I released, my first album, was finished in 2017. I released it in 2020. Like, I was doing all kinds of stuff. I was trying out comedy. I was figuring out where I wanted to be and who I was and what I was doing. Still figuring that out. But I think the general sentiment that I'm trying to share is the secret, anything, you can't manifestation is not, I don't know, you believe what you want to believe, but I think the best way for your mental health to deal with not being where you want to be, I'm still not where I want to be, but I learned like years ago, like, you're going to be where you are, and once you're not where you are, that becomes where you are. So it's like, I guess acceptance, like accept that where you are, and you can still have goals. Like, God knows you still work your ass off. Absolutely. Work your butt off. Absolutely. But, yeah, don't sleep on the idea of just knowing that where you are is inescapable, and you can see that as an absolute cage, or you can see that as a freedom.
Well, we're all certainly enjoying the here and now because it has allowed us to be chatting with you, Victor, and this has been a real treat. Don't be a stranger, okay? Like, we want to keep track of you. If you become too big for our piddling show, I expect you to still, pay us a visit and grace us.
I've got more to say, Ryan. I've got more to say.
I know you do. And like, I usually do like 20 minutes on our show for interviews, but I've wanted to keep you on as long as I could because I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah, another time. We'll talk. So
thank you. I very much appreciate that. All right. Our thanks to Victor Jones and producer Lauren. Thanks to all of you for checking out Break the Business. We'll see you next week.